Welcome back, everyone. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel, and you are looking at the amazing, the strong, and the no longer in production for about over 60 years. This is the White Brand Model 568. It is a zigzag and straight stitch capable machine, and it even has needle position options, which was not standard back then. A number of machines had begun to offer it. This machine is two-toned. In the video, it may look like it's white and turquoise. It's actually not. If I hold my white uh, uh, paper towel here, you'll see it's actually a sort of a soft powder blue or a powdered turquoise. You can take your pick there. So I wanted to talk today about saving the best for last. This is one of the things that I typically do before I get ready to, in fact, sometimes I'll do my test stitching first, but I'm going to go ahead and do the video today on cleaning your machine. This is something that many people want to do first, and some people are so excited to get their vintage, cool looking machine, cool looking to them, clean. They want to polish it, and I understand that because you've probably seen some of the machines on, for sale that are absolutely, they look perfect. The paint is gorgeous and they've been polished, and you want to do the same to your machine. I don't blame you, but it's always worth a pound of cure is worth an ounce of prevention. You all know that. And I wanted to talk to you about today about some of the things that I might use to clean my sewing machine. And I've made cleaning videos before. This machine does not have a lot of chrome, and I don't see any of my chrome that is, tarnished or filthy in any capacity that I can tell. Sometimes I do, but I don't see it here. So that leaves me with painted finishes, and I was going to talk to you today about those finishes. I'll talk in a different video about waxing and polishing. That's not what we're really doing today. Now, this machine came to me. It was in a case. Your results may vary, but I have experienced more clean or less filthy machines in carry cases than I have in sewing machine tables. And part of that has to do with how dust can get to a machine. Now, there are exceptions. I picked up some real... Oh boy, I've picked up some really awful machines in cases. So again, please consider that I'm speaking on the law of averages here. So I wanted to talk to you about some of the things I use to actually do the cleaning. Here down below, you will see I have, you can use a paper towel. You can see I have cotton fabrics here, and because I like not wasting, these are old scraps of fabric that I've done test stitching on in the past. This one is soft. This one is not as soft, but close. And this one is, they're all cotton. This one has a little bit more texture to it. It's not harsh. It shouldn't scratch the machine, but it will, having that different level of texture is going to help you on some of the areas that might be stained. And of course, it will surprise none of you who know my channel to know that I'm also going to be using, yes, you guessed it, cotton swabs. By the way, cotton swabs that I like to use are these, and I use generic cotton swabs for cleaning. I don't typically use, I have some left over, these precision tips. I say precision tips for things that, well, not to be funny about it, require precision, and this doesn't really require that much precision. There may be exceptions, and we could certainly look at that. However, I typically use just generic cotton swabs for this part of machine overhaul, and I really like cotton swabs that have this sort of board, fiber board material. It's white, and if you bend it, it does that. They are not reinforced with plastic. I'm trying to get plastic out of my life. As much as I can, God help me. And I also like that if instead of snapping it like I just did with that one, you can also sort of bend them, right? And you can kind of shape them. And if you really wanted to shape it, you could actually wet it and that would help and then it would dry. Anyway, that is what I typically use. And my precision tips, when I do use them, are the same. They don't have that plastic sheathing on them. Okay, well, what about cleaners? What are we going to use? Well, let's take a look at this right here. This is not by any means an exhaustive list of cleaners for a sewing machine. I've shown all of you in the past that I have metal polishes when I need them. I've even used a hand cleaner before, and I might need that. But I always start with what I consider to be the mildest thing. Now, when you look at this, those of you who know my channel, I bet you can guess. Let me explain what you see in front of you, and then I'll talk about what is the mildest. This is sewing machine oil. This is valve oil, which is similar in composition, only it has solvent mixed in. I got it at a music store. It's not that expensive. I don't know, it was $6 or $8 for what it is. It was not bad. That's $6 or $8 for that bottle. I've had it for quite a while. And then over here you see a cleaner. Now this was originally a Greenworks sort of citrus-based cleaner, and I ended up using the bottle, and I have a combination of water and a small amount, as in less than 10% isopropyl. It's mostly water and dishwashing liquid with a little alcohol, but only a little. Now, remember, this is extremely important. Do not, under any circumstances, do not use 99% isopropyl. Don't use 91% isopropyl, and don't use 75 or 50%. Once you get down below to 50%, you may get away with it, but I cannot emphasize this enough. Every machine is not the same. Manufacturers differed in the chemistry of the paints. You know, it has more to do with the time, right? You go back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, almost every machine, those gorgeous machines from that time period, they have a black enamel that was baked onto them, and then they had something approaching not lacquer but not shellac, something very similar, and they would clear coat those black machines. They were almost all black, and they used the clear coat to help seal in those lovely decals. And those paints are extremely vulnerable to any kind of solvent. I'm not sure I would even trust the small amount of solvent in this valve oil, much less any alcohol. Alcohol will instantly, and I do mean instantaneously, ruin your black finish. Don't do it. It's not worth it. So, why do you see sewing machine oil here? Well, because sewing machine oil is one of those things that the engineers, the manufacturers knew that was going to get on the machine because, you know, a sewer was going to oil their machine, and you just knew that they were going to spill it at some point. So what you can do is, I always say, start with the mildest thing you can think of to get your machine clean. And then as you need to, you can experiment cautiously, carefully, and moving up to things that are more aggressive. There will come a limit, though, to what you can do on your machine without harming the finish. So this was made in the 1960s. It was a solvent-based paint. I'm not aware that it had clear coat. They had started to do away with a lot of the decals. A few of the Japanese brands were still trying to throw them in there to try to convince people from prior generations that they could, you know, they were more traditional. But most of the decals at this point in time have disappeared. And so I don't know if this had a clear coat. I don't know how many coats were on here, and I don't know the exact chemistry, and neither do you. Unless you were in that factory and you were responsible for the coatings, who knows? What I do know is that the lovely sheen, and you can see some of the reflection on the paint, you don't want to lose that. So it's a fine balance. You have to decide how clean do you want your machine and how much risk are you taking with the paint finish. I lean toward the more conservative end of this, thus the term conservation. That doesn't mean you cannot get your machine looking gorgeous, though, and we're going to try. So the first thing I'm going to do, I see a few stain areas here, but nothing major. But I'm going to take just sewing machine oil. Normally I'd be putting in and I'm just going to put a few drops along the top, on the top of the top of the machine here. I'll give you guys a little bit better view. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to take, this is a soft, an old, like any soft cloth will do, and I'm going to basically I'm just buffing the top of the machine, right? And you can let the sewing machine oil sit. The milder the cleaner, the longer it will take, typically. And I'm just coming across, I don't even know. You might want to start, if you start with a clean cloth, that'll tell you more about what's coming off, what's not. Some of these things will come right off with sewing oil. And sewing oil should not hurt any paint finish on a sewing machine. If it can, then there's something really wrong with the machine, because I've never come across a machine that would not allow sewing machine oil to be spilled on it. When you get over here, do not press down as hard. Remember, there's a very delicate hinge that holds your side door. So be mindful of that. This is not the same as the rest of the top of the machine. You will find that if you don't get in a hurry, which you should never do, then you're less likely to cause any damage. Okay, so that's the first thing that I do. The next thing to do is, you can even try very carefully. I just used my thumbnail and I didn't know. I'm testing, is that a chip in the paint? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. Is it, some kind of goo that, who knows what it could be? Maybe it came from a donut from somebody who sewed on this machine 30 years ago. You never know, right? So I'll go back and put another droplet of oil and I can just put it on there with my thumb, right? Sometimes you'll see that things have stained your machine because paint, contrary to popular myth, is not completely unporous. And if you've ever gotten a water droplet on anything that was painted and you went to clean it, you may have noticed that, hey, the paint got wet. So I'm taking just my thumbnail and coming across to see if the sewing oil will dissolve it. If it doesn't, there's a chance that it could be a small scratch or a nick, and that's okay. This machine is still very lovely. So, if you have, if there's a texture, like if I come across here and I feel a distinct texture, especially if it's a depression, that's probably a scratch. Somebody clipped it with something. That's not going to clean. So, make sure that you are not trying to move heaven and earth to clean something that's not even a stain. All right, another way you can do it, you can take one of your cotton swabs and you can put a few drops of sewing oil on there, and you can actually come across, and you can basically, what you're doing is you're focusing the pressure a little bit more, right? Now, I don't think this will show up for you guys yet. It's not that dirty, but I was able to pull something off just with that. The cotton swab is especially going to be your friend when it comes time to get into areas that might not be as easy to do. And I don't know if you guys saw that. Look at that, right? I just got some goo off of there, and that's just with sewing oil. If your machine will clean with sewing oil, I'll just put 3 drops across the top here. Then just use that. There's no reason to break out anything else. And your machine doesn't have to stay oily and greasy. Once you have finished cleaning it with the oil, you can buff the oil off with a soft cloth. In fact, that's probably a good idea anyway, so that you don't end up with a dust magnet, which oil is. So I'm coming across here and getting more off there. Again, this is a restoration. If you take care of your machine and it's beautiful and spiffy, you really are not going to have this. This is for people who've just gotten a machine. Now, by the way, notice this plate, right? This plate where you're adjusting needle position. I see some kind of stuff here. You might think, well, hey, maybe that's a safe place to put alcohol. No, because you have ink here. You have this lovely, do not do that, because we don't know. Maybe that ink or paint or whatever it is will go away. You don't want that to happen. So again, less is more. And then if less doesn't work, then you carefully can start to I'm taking sewing machine oil on here to see if whatever that is, I think it's just old oil and grease. Look at that. See? See what I was able to, I'm getting this to come off. I'll zoom in here for you. I'm getting that to come off just with, you can see what's coming off here on the end, just with sewing oil. So it might surprise you. And if the sewing oil isn't working super fast, that's because it's gentle, but it can be very effective. You can even you can wet it with sewing oil, let it sit overnight. You may be shocked how much of it loosens. And if not, then you can move forward. Again, I'm going the extra mile here to showcase to all of you how not to hurt your machine. You've worked so hard, and if you save the best for last, getting it to look beautiful. The last thing you want to do is mess up the look because you were in a hurry. And you can see here, I've just got sewing oil. Look at that. It's coming off. I literally just touched it with the oil. I haven't even let it soak. Now, I don't want to oversell this. You see how that came off right there? That's just sewing oil. You don't have to break out, the really tough, aggressive stuff if you don't need to. You will be a lot more likely to preserve your machine's beauty and not cause it harm after all this effort that you've put in. You want to show it to, maybe you want to show it to a fellow sewer or just one of your friends. Say, look what I did. I got this machine all working and it was looking beautiful until so you don't want to do that. And be patient. You'll notice, and it won't surprise you, that there are areas of the machine that collect more filth than others. For example, this little area here, right? It's just the top area, but it's horizontal, right? So any horizontal area is going to be more apt to collect. It's just dust and dirt, maybe a combination. You will sometimes notice, you particularly notice it on blue or turquoise machines, you'll sometimes see it looks a little greener. And if you ever see an area of a blue machine that looks sort of greenish, that's old sewing oil that has turned amber. It's not necessarily the paint, but it could have stained the paint, right? It could have. So we're gonna, like I say, I'm doing really fine with just sewing oil, but again, that's no guarantee that the whole machine will clean that way. And again, with the oil as a lubricant on the paint, again, I just used my thumbnail. Now here, whatever was on there went away. It might have gone away if I just let the sewing machine oil sit overnight, but I know many of my viewers are very generous with their time in watching my videos, but I don't think they want to sit and watch oil for the next 24 hours. That would definitely be a Zen challenge. Okay, so there you go. I have just used sewing oil here, and look what I've been able to accomplish. Now, let's see. Maybe there's a part of this machine that really is crying out for something a little stronger, but hopefully safer. Look down here. Now, down on the bed of the machine often takes some of the harshest wear, right? It's where, people used to, you have pins and it's not so much the fabric going back and forth as the pins in the fabric that cause things like scratches. Most of what I see here is literally scratches in the paint. And so what am I going to do with that? Well, I don't really see a stain per se. So let's take a look at the back of the machine. Of course, you should clean all areas of your machine. Whoops. And as you do that, first of all, by the way, I don't know if any of you may not have been able to see this when the machine was in the other position just now, but I have not yet put back my lovely cover with no cracks. Why? Because I know I want to clean down right under here, and I can put the cover back at any time before I start using the machine, or I'll probably make the debut video on it. Okay, so I'm going to try sewing machine oil like I did before. Let's see what it does. Again, most of this is just dust and old oil. And new sewing oil will dissolve old oil as long as the old oil has not gummed up really thick. At that point, you normally need something with a little bit of solvent in it. So you can see just with this cotton swab alone. Now, I don't want to suggest that every sewing machine and every stain is going to do this. I've had some that were very stubborn, okay? And there's something on the back of this machine I believe is going to be stubborn, and we'll use that as an example for me to explain how I get it when you say, yeah, but this thing won't come off and it won't come clean and it looks terrible. I've had machines like that. I don't want to give anyone the impression that, oh, yeah, it's always going to be this simple, because that's just unfortunately not true. Get my cord to behave there. All right, so basically, well, didn't really need to do anything here, right? So it all cleaned up really well. I'm rather happy with that. But when I was working on the machine, I saw something. I thought, this might require a little bit more, something a little more aggressive. And some of you will find that, because again, sewing machines do not always live gentle lives, especially when people who are not the original owners get a hold of them. That's not always the case, but I can tell you more times than not, when a machine looks like it was not treated well, it's because it was either given to someone or it was purchased by somebody down the street who says, yeah, I'll take it, and they didn't pay for it. They were not the original owners. They didn't appreciate how valuable it was. All right, so what did I do? First thing I've got cotton fabric, just a little more, more textured, maybe a little more aggressive as cotton fabrics go. And I've got some kind of filth here, and I don't know what that is. So the first thing I want to look at, we'll try sewing oil. Who knows? Maybe that'll work. But I guess I've faced enough of these machines to know that Now, interesting. Now, is that dirt or is that a chip in the paint? I can't tell at this point. It would be an odd place to have a paint chip, though. Okay, some of it's coming off, but it's being stubborn. All right, so what am I going to do next? First of all, I'm on the back of the machine. If you ever want to test something and you're not sure, you just don't know, you can actually lift your machine up, right? And you can experiment on an area. You can test an area of your machine to see what the paint will do with that cleaner, right? That way, if it does have a problem, it's out of sight. It's like, underneath the machine or something. It's not really going to harm the appearance of your machine, because no one really shows the underside of their machine, except for me on videos that I make. Okay, so I've got my valve oil, and I know my valve oil has a little bit of solvent, not very much. Okay, it's mostly oil. Let's see what that does. Is that going to help us here at all? Well, I'm getting more. If you guys look, you'll see I'm getting a lot more on my cotton swab now, right? And I just bumped it up just one level. Yeah, that's not paint chip, or I would just not be getting anywhere. So again, I've taken the valve oil. Now remember, before I have used valve oil on machines of this era and done fine with them with no damage. But remember, any of these things that I'm showing you, with the exception of sewing machine oil, that's the one thing I can say. Sewing machine oil, you really should not have any problems, because if you do, it's not the oil, it's something else going on with the paint finish of your machine. If you have a Necchi, early Necchi BU machines are known for this problem, especially the black ones. They had issues with their paint, sadly. They're still wonderful machines, though. You guys have heard me fawn over them for years. Okay, so obviously that little bit of solvent, but now if I didn't know how this paint was going to react to this product on this machine from this era, from this manufacturer, what would I do? I would go in and test it on an inconspicuous area to make sure, right, before I start going to town. And it's working for me. But again, I wish I could tell you, oh, just use this on any of your vintage machines and look how awesome it'll be. It would sound like some sort of infomercial or something. But I can't. right? And I won't do that because I don't know. All right, so what happens, I'm going to take one of my soft cotton cloths here and wipe. As far as I can tell at this point, I cannot tell that the surface was dulled particularly. What you will notice sometimes is that if you use something that is harsh, the first thing that will happen is, let's say you'll still see the paint color, but it'll turn flat. It will lose its gloss. That means it has really started to soften the paint. That is your first clue to stop, get that stuff off of there, get the remaining residue of the cleaner off. Now, if you've already damaged your machine that way, I say damage, I mean that relatively. If you've taken the sheen off your paint, you're like, oh no, you can rectify that with polishes and waxes. But there's no reason to do that in the first place. Just use an ounce of prevention. And again, as all of you, I have other things to clean here, and I'm going to be going over the machine and giving it cleaning all around. But I just wanted all of you to see some of the options that are available to you. I know I have made cleaning videos in the past, and I'll continue to do so. In fact, this should probably be called a cleaning video. But I wanted you to see that you don't have to start with the harshest cleaner to say, I'm getting this thing clean and it's filthy. You know, if that's your approach, you've seen too many commercials for cleaners. We've all been exposed to those commercials all of our lives. Now, take a look right here. The same paint that is used on the lovely body of your machine, the part that you enjoy looking at, is also down here. So if you're not sure, you can come down here. Don't get near your running gear, but right under here. You can just put right here. Try it. Test it. How do you test it? Put a small amount of that product, take it, and use just a generic cotton swab. Cotton swabs will prevent you from generally, if just get it wet and it should hold, and just try it and see, and then let it dry. Or dry, do what you're going to do. You don't have to have a stain down here. In fact, it's kind of interesting. This is gorgeously clean. In fact, this part of the machine I didn't even have to clean. It was clean. But go ahead and use that cleaner. Rub it in, okay? If it may dry on its own. If it doesn't, you can wipe it dry and then come back to it in an hour or whatever and look. Did it do anything? Did it make this shiny area less shiny? Did it discolor? Did it remove the paint entirely? Because they can. Some things are so harsh. You'll literally remove the paint. So again, although yes, it's true that the black machines were the most vulnerable, always assume that you must use caution when using any chemical on the paint of your machine, because the whole point of this is to get your machine to look beautiful. And it's not going to look beautiful. It looks like somebody attacked it with paint stripper or something. So that is how I will go about completing the cleaning of this workhorse of a machine, this 1.3 amp white branded sewing machine from the early 60s. I appreciate all of you watching. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel. That costs nothing. And if you would like to donate to the channel and help me with resources to find more machines to rescue, and if you've ever actually gained anything from watching one of the videos on this channel, feel free to do that. But in the meantime, keep up your confidence when you have a machine and maybe you can't get a stain off the paint, or God, worse, it's not running. Don't always give up on it. Sometimes it requires patience. Sometimes it requires watching videos and reading. There are blogs you can read, and you can find a lot of information on these machines. It might surprise you. I know it can be frustrating sometimes, but I think all of you, if you have followed the series I've made on this machine and how many videos and how much effort it took for me to understand how to deal with something I had never seen before, and I've been doing this for 10 years, but I kept at it. I didn't give up. I searched and I looked and I found, and then finally just had to take it apart and try. And finally, it clicked, and it will for you too. You don't have to be a sewing machine restorer, and you don't have to have a YouTube channel to do a great job overhauling your machine. So hang in there, everyone. If you get stuck, it's worth it, because when you get to the end, you clean your machine and you get to sew with it. You don't just have a sewing machine, you have a part of history that you kept out of the landfill. I wish I could give out trophies for this. But I so appreciate your support over the years, and I will see you in the next video, and hopefully, the debut, I gotta test its stitches, but hopefully the debut is around the corner here, because this machine needs to have a new home. It needs to find a new owner who will put it to work, and I think they will get years of enjoyment afterwards. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.